Buenos dias. Clinton Gallagher here. We're going to talk about statutory licensing. Architects, accountants, HVAC contractors, people who paint fingernails. There's 2,700 markets that are closed by socialist licensing, implemented in the early part of our 20th century to control the means of production. Yes, folks, the socialists did take over America. There's a lot of brouhaha talked about socialism this and socialism that, but they're here in every state. They control the economy of every state. They determine who can and who cannot lawfully work. Now, here's the deal. Rather than write the laws themselves as legislators, your Republican and Democrats, they deem that task to the licensees themselves, and it happens through the associations. The associations for the Institute of Architects, for example, which I happen to have been having my own column for here in the state of Wisconsin in the Wisconsin Architect magazine. Yeah, back in the day, I was a top dog in technology as a AEC industry trusted advisor that I remain to this very day. Well, what the architects did in 1990, when CAD came around, they got together and changed the laws. Now, I used the Pareto principle to generalize so I could try to be fair when I pull numbers out of my patootie. There's 80-20 rule. 80% of architects back in the day, they hated the idea of CAD, wanted nothing to do with it. Why? I understand why, because I was there. I was in a school of architecture, graduating and working as an architect myself. It took us a long time to develop the manual dexterity skills to draw circles, arcs, and most of all, lettering. Explicit lettering by hand that looks as if a machine had drawn it. The justification was that should a number be misread on a dimension, it could cause some serious ramifications. And to this, I am 100% in agreement. So I worked fastidiously myself, printing. And I had my compliments. I had my day. Told like I was one of the best draftsmen a person had ever seen. Things of that nature make you feel good because when you work at something, you put your heart and soul into it. That's all it's about, your heart and your soul. But come 1990, the architects ripped our hearts and our souls out when they changed the laws to licensing so they could keep us out. Because guys like me, day one CAD guys who like when 85, we were cranking out architecture projects in 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days. That took them 9 months, 9 weeks, 9 days. Get the picture here? It was all about the money, honey. And the money comes in for architects during the construction documentation phase. The phase out of 5 phases of architectural service where all the big bills come through. So we feed on that. So what would they do? They changed the law. And so far, they've gotten away with violating the 13th Amendment of the United States that forbids indentured servitude, which is a form of slavery that, along with chattel slavery, was criminalized. And for a reason, it's slavery. And that's what they did. They implemented what they call the Internship Development Program, a program that nobody has to provide to anybody. but it's required by law. So the only way to meet the obligations of the law is to subjugate yourself. You have to subjugate yourself to a licensed agent of the state, a socialist agent of the state who already has a license. Now, at face value, they claim this is protect the safety, health, and welfare of the public. This will make a better architect, improve our services. But in reality, I was there. I heard what they all had to say. I went through it. And then, to make matters worse, they denied me a license because I had one more exam to pass. At that inopportune time, when the internship development program was passed into law and it shut the doors on people so they can control people using CAD coming into the practice and profession of architecture. Now, here's the issue. As AI continues to displace labor, all these jobs are going away. People have to retrain, of course, and new jobs will be created. But the concern about new jobs being created is real because the skills that are required are much more complex and much more technically challenging. How did a 60-year-old guy in a job going to learn how to be a vibe coder or learn how to prompt to interact with an AI chatbot that generated an engineering soil bearings report, for example? This is a geotech engineering example. I work closely with an engineering tech firm here in Wisconsin. Top dog search results, I might add, that I've achieved for them, coding their website. That's right, cgcinc.net/topdog. See the facts for yourself, because that's a fact, Jack. A top dog in the state when it comes to applying technology to architecture, engineering, and construction. So they hurt me really bad, crippled my entire adult career, shut me out, and relegated me into the tech guy that I am today because I had no other choice to fall back on my tech skills and the web. So in 1993, when Tim Berners-Lee turned the World Wide Web on, I crossed the chasm, I crossed the Rubicon. I never looked back because I had no choice. My freedom and my liberty to work in the United States of America, land of the free, was stolen from me by socialist agents of the state. In my context, architects. In other contexts, engineers. Now I want to diverse a little bit and go back to the late 80s or thereabouts when here in Wisconsin, the Hmong were being brought over from Cambodia and Laos and the like, some years after Vietnam. And I'm wondering, what is this? Well, the news reports was that Wisconsin was a lot geographically like their homeland. But who were these Hmong? As it turns out, if you ever watched the movie Good Morning Vietnam, recall the scene in the town when the bars were getting blown up and the like, and the guys that were setting those bombs and running away. Some of them were Hmong. The Hmong worked for the CIA because the Hmong spoke Vietnamese and they looked like Vietnamese and they fit right in. They were spies for the CIA. So after America was defeated by communists and we ran home, the Hmong's lives were worthless, worth spit. Tooey. So we didn't really stab them in the back and we brought them here, and I really appreciate that. That's something honorable our people actually did. But here's the thing. When the Hmong settled here in Wisconsin, they went, what the hell are we going to do to support ourselves? Because they weren't given jobs. They were given their freedom to come here and live in a land of the free. the friend of the free, where production is controlled by socialists, so you had to have a license. And how that affects the story of the Hmong is that the Hmong ladies, they would go out into our community like all of us have seen. These little shops that are like 20 feet wide, 12 feet wide in these shopping center buildings, these strip malls where the building was not explicitly divided into an even number of stores and was always a leftover little store somewhere. You'll see them everywhere. Even going way back into the buildings built in the 40s and the 50s, they're everywhere. The Hmong, being an industrious people, went out, started opening them, and the ladies had businesses painting fingernails. Well, that didn't last very long at all, because the Socialist Nazi Party of the Beauticians Association called foul and said that that's part of what they do under the rubric of their license to protect and preserve the safety, health, and welfare of the public. Because everybody knows a woman with painted fingernails could easily die. And there you go, folks. They shut them all down. They starved them out of the marketplace using this caca de vaca that almost, I'll say 80% again, of every licensed market in the United States, of which there are now over 2,700, and in the state of Wisconsin, 272 at last count, licenses required for this and that. Blow your nose, license required. Wipe your butt, license required, to protect the safety, health, and welfare of the public. You never know who. All right? This is the bottom line. Now, when AI displaces labor to the point where there's millions of people unemployed who haven't cut the ability to retrain and get into these new jobs that are going to be created, what do you think is going to happen? Well, the labor movement history of the United States is pretty clear. The government will shoot you down. They'll kill you, they'll shoot you in the streets. These industrialists, these socialist licensees will have their politician buddies who they buy through the money of their associations to pass the laws that they write themselves. And they'll shoot you down in the streets. That's going to come here to America again if we do not man up and look at the corrupt aspects of statutory employment. Did it happen here in Wisconsin? Yeah, it's called one of them is called the Bayview Massacre. 1,000 or so men were on strike, and they wouldn't go to work because back in the day, this is the late 19th century, the industrialists were cruel taskmasters. They'd make men work 14, 16, 18-hour shifts. Tell them you don't like it, you're fired. There's somebody else who will take that job. And there was somebody else that would take that job. But they were striking and they wanted an 8-hour workday. So what did Republican Governor Rusk do? Gave the order to shoot. And they killed 7, 8 guys, and a kid was shot up and all that kind of stuff. That's what we're facing today, because I want you all to know something. It's pretty damn clear that this time we're shooting Jack. We're shooting back. And that's a fact, Jack. And you could bet your ass.